Head to Auto Club Speedway out in California. NASCAR teams from the Nationwide Series and the Sprint Cup Series are traveling across the country from their North Carolina shops and where we were last week in Bristol, all the way out to California, so that's quite the haul. But last week in Bristol was pretty. I mean, the racing was really good when we were racing, but it was disappointing as a fan because the Cup race was affected by the rain, and we knew that going into that race last week. I saw the forecast on the Monday of the race, and it said it was going to be pouring all day, and I didn't even think we were going to be racing Sunday, so I guess it's kind of a bonus that we got to see the race, but Carl Edwards won the race. It was rain shortened by 2 laps. There was a little snafu there at the end with the caution lights coming on accidentally with 2 to go. Carl Edwards won that race, his first win of 2014. And for the Sprint Cup Series, that's in 4 different races that we've had this year. We've got 4 different winners, 2 Chevrolets and 2 Fords. Toyota is yet to visit victory lane in the Cup Series. But they had no problem getting there on Saturday before the Cup race. Kyle Busch just dominated in Bristol as he normally does. So that was pretty much a chalk pick for me last week. I had him to win, but pretty much knew that was going to happen with all those Cup guys coming down and putting on a show in the Nationwide Series. It's getting kind of old, and I want to write a piece on that sometime coming up about how I think either NASCAR needs to put a limit on the amount of races that the Cup guys can come down and race in the Nationwide Series, or they should just not allow them to come down at all and play in the Nationwide Series, because to me as a fan, I want to see different drivers win and prove themselves in the Nationwide Series. And I understand that, if you got, 5 or 8 Cup guys coming down every weekend to play in the Nationwide Series, and the Nationwide guys have to beat those guys to win the race and prove themselves. But I also think it's not really a true test of their skill level. I mean, they're in the Nationwide Series because they're not at the Cup level yet. So keep the Cup guys in the Cup Series and keep the Nationwide guys in the Nationwide Series. If the Nationwide guys want to go up a race, race a few races in the Cup Series, that's fine. If you want to move up a series for just a race or two. But I don't really agree with the Cup guys coming down to play in the Nationwide, or even the Truck Series for that matter. It's just, I like to see the Nationwide guys win the Nationwide races. I want to see truck drivers win the truck races. I want to see Sprint Cup drivers win the Sprint Cup races. That's how I think it should be. But that's just my opinion. I understand that there's a lot of people that are like, well, you got to prove it, you belong in the series. You got to beat these guys. And I get that, but at the same time, it just gets old seeing Brad Keselowski and Kyle Busch and Matt Kenseth come down and just, it seems like they're top 3 battling for the win every single weekend. And as a fan, that's just not something I want to see every weekend. I watch it regardless. I'm going to watch it regardless, so, I'm going to have an opinion on it. But I would like to see NASCAR make a change there. The other thing I think NASCAR needs to change, and I mentioned this in my blog this week, is change the schedule for this opening part of the series or of the season. Because for 4 race weekends, we've had 3 of them affected by rain so far. And my suggestion is don't mess with Daytona. That has to stay. That has to be the first race of the year every year. I don't care. That's going to be number 1 race of the year. But then I think you got to move out to the West Coast and hit up the West Coast tracks right off the bat, because granted, it rained in Phoenix for the first time in like 70 days or something crazy like that when they were out there earlier this season. But go to Phoenix, go to Vegas, California, hit them all right there. Don't go across the country to Bristol, in between one of those 2 or 3 weeks. Don't come across to Martinsville like they're going to do next week. Get those races on the West Coast run, because we've always got weather issues this early in the season on the East Coast, and it seems, we're always battling rain, or the threat is always there, and it's not nearly as much of a threat on the West Coast, it seems. So run the races out there. Plus, teams are going to save a bunch of money by not having to drive across the country every single weekend. Yeah, the team hauler is probably going to have to bring back a new car, but they can also plan maybe bring a car for the following weekend with them. Say we're at Vegas and then we go to California. Maybe when they go to the Vegas race, they bring a California car with them, just so they're more prepared and it's a little bit more cost efficient. But anyway, enough with my rambling there. I'm going to get on to California this weekend. Nationwide and Sprint Cup are in action. And I really like California as a racetrack. The track surface, inaugural race was around in 1997. So now the track is getting a little bit of age into it. It makes it a little bit more racy. The surface is a little bit slicker. Guys are moving around. But the thing I love about California is you can race all the way to the bottom of the track, and you can have guys right up darn near scraping the wall all the way around the corner. I mean, you can hardly fit a piece of paper between them and the wall, and that's what I love. There's so many different lines you can take to try and get around this track, and whatever works, that's going to be where people are. There's going to be people all the way at the top, all the way at the bottom, in the middle, in between other lines. And that's just really cool as a fan because it shows that drivers are adapting to what their car or to wherever their car is running the best and turning the corner and carrying that momentum off of the corner onto the front and the back stretch. And so I like that. It creates for a lot of passing. Last year I think a lot of people don't even remember who won the race. It was Kyle Busch who won the race, but coming off turn 4 last year, it was Denny Hamlin battling Joey Logano. They were ex-teammates at the time. They were teammates in 2012 over at Joe Gibbs Racing. Logano had moved on to Penske. But they battled coming off 4, wrecked, collided, sent Denny Hamlin into the inside wall, and he suffered a fractured L1 vertebrae, and that kept him sidelined for a lot of the season last year. He did break through a win in Homestead at the last race of the season, but that was pretty much the headlines. And then you had Logano and Stewart throwing water bottles at each other after the race on pit road, at each other's throats. So I mean, it creates for a little bit of excitement for sure. And I love watching guys be able to utilize that high line. It's just super cool to see a car that close to the wall, going darn near 200 miles an hour, and just the car control and being able to dare the car to handle and not hit the wall. And if you're able to hold the car on that high line, you're able to carry the momentum off because you're not having to cut the car or cut the corner as much. You're able to keep that momentum going in, and you're able to carry the momentum going out and get a good run going down the front and the back stretch. So that's cool to see. There's drafting can come into play a little bit because it's just a 2-mile track. So I mean, it's fairly large. I mean, it's still an intermediate track, but drafting will come into play a little bit. I don't think tires will be that big of a deal. I can't say for sure, but I think it's going to be a pretty standard race. I don't think the tire wear is going to be awful, so wouldn't expect anything too out of the ordinary right there. But I guess now I'll give you my picks for this weekend. I'm kind of going chalk this weekend. I'm going to go with Kyle Busch in the nationwide race. Joe Gibbs Racing has won the last 3 times there with Logano and Busch. So I think Busch will score the win there easily. Otherwise, his teammate Kenseth is in there too. Also, Elliott Sadler, who's the only nationwide regular over at Joe Gibbs Racing, he needs a win bad. But I think I'm going to go with the 54 of Kyle Busch over there. Sprint Cup, I think I'm going to go Jimmy Johnson here too. He's got 5 wins, the most of all time. And he hasn't won yet in 2014, so that's got a lot of people up in arms. But he's not far off. He's battling up front, getting top 10s, and I've never come to doubt Jimmy Johnson. They've proven they can win in different ways. They won 5 championships in a row, 6 in all, and I don't doubt that duo of Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson. So I'm gonna go chalk with Jimmy Johnson in the 48 car. I'm gonna pick. He's gonna be the 5th different winner in 2014 in 5 races. So, we got quite a battle for the chase shaping up here. That goes to the top 16 drivers with the most wins, or whoever's highest up in points if we don't reach 16 winners. But at the rate we're going, we might have more than 16 winners, and the battle's going to be to get 2 wins. So I think the closest driver to that has been Kevin Harvick. He's had the fastest car the last 3 weeks. The last 2 weeks, he's had problems with I think he blew an engine and he blew a left front wheel hub, I believe, last week, or right front wheel hub. So that took him out of the race. But he was coming from 4th, battling for 3rd when it happened. So he's been bad fast in the 4 car. He's really been the best car out of the Stewart-Haas Racing stable. And then, Penske's been good all year too with Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski. So don't count those guys out. And so that's pretty much what I got for you guys this week. And I'll be back next week to preview my personal favorite track in Martinsville. I love that place. So gonna be good. I'm gonna enjoy the races this weekend. Hopefully you guys do the same. So have a good weekend, guys. Thanks.